thank you so much, everybody who's joining in on the call. This is our second event in our college application series. Today, we'll be covering how to build a college list effectively. So we'll cover some types of schools that you can choose from and how to balance your college list out while including a wide range of schools in your list. Today, we're also going to be having a guest speaker. Right now, we have Emma. She is an incoming freshman at the University of Chicago, and she's also one of our Eddie Visa mentors. And we also will hopefully have Talya join the call as well. And she is another Eddie Visa mentor, and she is a current junior at Duke University. So I'll go over Emma's bio really quickly. And then after that, I think I'll leave it to Emma to take it away. So Emma Huerta is an incoming freshman at the University of Chicago and is hoping to major in philosophy of law, letters, and society. She graduated from Cooper City High School in South Florida as co-salutarian of her class. During high school, Emma participated in a variety of activities and held various club leadership positions while balancing her course load, serving as online editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, president of the National English Honor Society, co-founder and president of Future Law Professionals of America, and more. She also has been a ballet dancer since she was 6 years old and hopes to continue dancing in college. In the summer of her junior year, Emma was admitted to and participated in multiple selective college fly-in programs, including Swarthmore College's Discover Swarthmore program and the University of Pennsylvania's Penn Early Exploration program and Penn in Focus programs. Last year, Emma applied to 20 U.S. colleges and was accepted to 15 schools, including the University of Pennsylvania, Barnard College of Columbia University, the University of Florida, and Williams College. She also has received scholarships from both universities and organizations alike, such as the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, the Burger King Foundation, and the Hispanic Heritage Fund. As she begins her first year of college in Chicago, Emma is happy to answer any questions and provide information about the college application process. And I'm going to send her email and her LinkedIn profile into the chat. So that's Emma. So I think, Emma, you're free to share screen and take it away now.
Hey everyone, thanks for that awesome introduction and thanks for having me to talk to you guys about building a college list. I just want to preface that although I think I had some relative success in my college app process, I was once in your shoes doubting everything I did and adding this school and taking this school away. It was a very hit or miss process, so I just wanted to let you know that you're not alone and you will all find that success that you desire in your college app process eventually. So now that I have that sort of disclaimer out of the way, so since today the webinar is about building a college list, I guess I could walk you through my process and as well as like the main bullet points, so to speak, of how to create a proper college list and to really strategize your applications in a way to maximize your success. So a key component of that, I think, is the reality of things, both the reality of like your probability of getting into certain schools, which you could identify by looking at their statistics and things like that, and also the reality of where you want to go with your post-secondary education, right? So one could, applying to like all of the Ivies or like all of like the top schools could seem really enticing, but when it comes down to it, if you can't write a why Brown essay like I was in those shoes, then maybe that Brown is not a right school for you. So I think a really important thing to consider in this process is the reality of where you want to go and how you could get there. So when you're starting to think of your college app list, obviously people really emphasize researching schools and all schools have like really great components, but again, an important part of that is comparing that to your reality of how you want to pursue your post-secondary education and if those great schools align with whatever interest you have. So that's a key part of that in general. And in terms of sort of strategizing your college app list, people always mention like you want to split it sort of evenly or split it among safeties, reaches, and matches. So if you haven't heard those terms before, it just basically means like the types of schools that you're applying for. So reaches are schools that have really small acceptance rates that are very difficult to get into, but those are schools that you're, trying hard to get into and you might in the future. So those are what you're reaching towards. Matches are schools that they're accepted their accepted classes in the past, like the stats of the people who have gotten into that school match what your statistics look like and what you as an applicant would represent. So there's a very high chance that you would get into that school. And then your safety schools are schools that you also have a high chance of getting into. You might be above average or slightly above average of their, accepted classes from the past. So in case anything doesn't go exactly as you planned for with your college application process, you have those safety schools that you like and that you can afford, and those schools that you are willing to go to that that would help you with your secondary education in case anything doesn't go as planned. So it's important to have those 3 types of schools in your college list and sort of like even it out like that, so that you have different options to choose from once all of your results start coming in. And this is a process that you continue on as you are creating your applications as well. So it's not like you have to have, I guess, your list finalized before you start your applications. So if you're doing probably a general application, so like the common application or the coalition application that goes out to multiple different schools, and you're not doing like individual institutional applications to each college because that would take a really long time, you can most definitely start your college or common application or coalition application and start working through that if you're not sure exactly of which schools you want to apply to. And then as you go along that, you can most definitely take some away, add some schools, and then finalize your list as you're also going along, starting off your actual applications. And then once you have that list completed, you can look across schools for the requirements or specific requirements. The good thing is that a lot of schools ask for same sorts of things. So if they ask for like a resume, other schools may also have that as an option. Some of the essays might be a little bit similar as well, and you can sort of strategize and maneuver around that. But the important thing is that you're settling on a list that is true to what you want to accomplish in your post-secondary education, and also something that will guarantee your success in the future. I feel like I might have been rambling, but I hope that helps. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that overview. I think that definitely will be very helpful. So I think now we'll turn it over to Talya to start talking about her own experience with building a college list. So I'm going to introduce Talya very quickly. So Talya Jeter is a junior at Duke University and is majoring in biomedical engineering and neuroscience. Her current research is involved with improving the math identity of middle school girls in STEM. In her free time, she plays for the Duke League of Legends team and is the editor-in-chief for the Duke Engineer magazine. She also has her own business called College Com with Talya, where she provides college prep services, resources, and digital content. And also, as I said before, she is one of our EduVisa mentors. So Talya, feel free to take it away.
Cool, thank you. Wait, I have to see if I can share my screen because I made a mini presentation. It's short though. Is this going to be like an hour long, or how much time do we have?
I'm expecting it to be an hour long, so
Okay, fun.
yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay.
Let me. Is there a way for me to share my screen?
I think you should be able to.
I forgot how to do it.
Oh no.
Wait. Oh no.
Oh no. Okay, if you aren't able to share screen like this, then should I create a regular call? Like that's not a stage channel? Okay, I'll try. Oh no. I
Can you
can.
do it?
Yeah, I think I can.
Just out of curiosity. Do you have the ability to share screen?
I for some reason actually don't see the option to share screen on stage channels, which I was not expecting.
Me
So what
neither.
I will do, I'll create another voice channel, which is very last minute. I'm so sorry for this, guys.
That's fine.
But yeah, I'll create a regular voice channel instead. for you to be able to share screen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Pamela?
I guess I should talk a little bit about my applying experience anyways.
Sure.
So I guess when I was applying to college, I applied to 15 schools and I got into 8 of them because most of the schools that I applied to were like in the top 20. I think I applied to like 1 or 2 safeties, which was my state school, Ohio State. And then, yeah, I kind of focused on schools that had really strong engineering programs, which is something that I advise doing when you guys are, like, if you know what you want to major in, like looking for schools that have a lot of resources and care a lot about that type of program is really helpful. So like, for example, even though I'm from the Midwest and like the University of Chicago is really close to me, I ended up not applying there because they don't have an engineering program at all. So it wouldn't really make sense for me to do that. And like, it's hard to part ways with schools that you know are really good, but like you have to end up like making those decisions because at the end of the day, like all of the schools are going to be really great schools. So it's just finding the one that's going to be like the one that you want to go to the most. And I guess that's part of the challenge. And puts a name to what I want to do, that can be really helpful. So when you're explaining why do you want to go to this school, you're like, hey, you have this degree program and you have the curriculum that I want to study because I want to have this specific impact on the world, and I can do that through these majors. So yeah, finding out which, like if a school teaches what you want to learn about is really important. Other things that can be important to look into are like the programs and opportunities that the school offers. So sometimes like they have really cool study abroad partnerships with other international universities, or they'll have really cool local partnerships and internships with local businesses that might be really important to you. So if you're really interested in finance, maybe like certain schools in New York or Chicago would be really helpful for you because they have really good internships or partnerships with those local finance businesses so you can kind of get your foot in the door. That might be interesting. Study abroad was an example I put. Internships and volunteering can be a good example. If there's particular, if they intersect with your interests, like just looking at those can also be really helpful. Like if you've been volunteering in high school and you want to keep doing that in college. And then pre-professional opportunities, sort of like I said with finance. But again, if you're thinking about medical school or law school, maybe schools that cater to preparing students best for those opportunities would also be like schools that, like more of a reason for why you would want to go to a particular school over another school. And then research. Some schools are research universities and some aren't. So some might have more research opportunities than others and like easier ways to get into labs and things like that. The other thing that I think is really important that I didn't look into as much when I was applying to schools, but I kind of discovered after the fact is that you really want to identify schools that cater to your needs. So for example, if scholarships and financial aid are something that you really need, schools that make that more accessible to you might be better schools for you because you know that they care about you. Basically, they're offering things that you need and they're keeping, those needs in mind, whereas other schools might not do that. So even if there's a school that sounds really cool to you, but they don't have anything that caters to your actual needs, then that might not be a school that you want to apply to. And that's just really helpful for narrowing down your application list because you really don't want to apply to more than 20 schools because I have seen that like once you go above a certain number of schools, like usually 20, once you start applying to more than 20 schools, your quality of your applications decreases a lot, and that significantly like impacts the quality of all of your applications to all the schools. And at the end of the day, you can only attend one university, so there isn't necessarily benefit for applying to that many. Oh yeah, and having flexible degree programs can also be something that caters to your needs. So if you know that you're interested in both you know, like biology and physics, like does a school let you double major, or do they let you, you know, do both or create your own major? Some universities like have that option. So that could also be like a really compelling reason for why you would want to apply to some schools and not others. Okay, that was a lot. So I'm just gonna briefly show some opportunities that you might not have known existed. That could be helpful in informing like what types of schools that you want to apply to. So these are just like charts that I've made in the past. So let's see. This is a really short list, so because I haven't like gotten much into it. But there are some schools that have like basically automatic scholarships. So for the University of Missouri, if you have between a 32 and 36 ACT or a 420 to 1600, oh my gosh, SAT, and a 3.5 GPA, then you can go there on full tuition, period. Like those are the only requirements you need to meet. And you don't have to be a state resident or anything like that. So there are some schools that are like that might, you know, appeal to you because you fit the criteria and, you know, that's a really good financial aid deal, and things like that. So there should be more schools coming to this list, but these are the only two that I have so far. All right, what else? So honors and scholars programs kind of have similar deals sometimes. So again, this list I'm currently working on, there aren't that many. But they show like for some schools, you can be admitted to their honors program when you apply. And there are certain benefits like financial aid rewards up to full tuition or research grants and things like that. And the appeal to honors and scholars programs are kind of like you have a community going into the university. So you kind of have, you know, a group that you can always like refer back to, and you already have like a sense of community going in, as opposed to finding people in your classes or, you know, trying to sift around clubs. So that can be really cool. And, you know, they come with benefits like they can let you study abroad. You can have, you know, already mentorship and research opportunities built in without having to apply to a bunch. And like, it can be stressful like in college trying to apply to research opportunities. Whereas here, like these honors and scholars programs will kind of give those to you. And like that takes away a lot of stress and it's really nice. Some of them are based on like like you can get in just based on applying, and others are entirely based on like basically everyone's considered eligible, and then only the admissions committee decides like who they want to put into the honors and scholars program. So national merit, if you are a national merit finalist, which would be based on if you're a domestic U.S. student, your PSAT score. These are a list of all the schools that award some sort of financial aid to national merit semifinalists or finalists. So it's cool because some schools only give awards to finalists, whereas other schools will also consider semifinalists. So if you're a semifinalist, like that's nice because you know that this school is going to cater to your needs, like they care about you and they're going to like offer you some sort of financial aid award. So that's really cool. This list is helpful for that. International aid can be also a really big thing if you're an international student who needs financial aid. It can be very hard to find like schools in the US that'll offer like any sort of aid. So this is a list that like I created that has a bunch of schools that like do offer merit-based scholarships for international students, or sometimes both merit-based scholarships and financial aid awards, where some schools make a promise that if you are admitted, they will meet 100% of your financial need. So the school does have to calculate like how much they think that you need, but if they feel like you need full tuition, then they will give you full tuition if they admitted you. So that's nice to know. Yeah, okay, moving on. Let's see. Accelerated degree programs, those are something that I wish that I knew about. I literally didn't know they existed when I was applying to college, and I'm pre-med currently, and it would have been so nice to know that there were schools that you could apply to basically have not guaranteed admission to medical school, but conditional admission. So basically it means if you're admitted to BSMD program, which means you get your BS degree and your MD degree kind of like in one, not at the same time, but you're admitted to both at the same time. Basically, if you meet a minimum GPA while you're in undergrad and you take the MCAT and meet a minimum score on the MCAT while in undergrad, then you get to go to that school's medical school, which is really nice because medical school admissions, like the acceptance rate is like 3% on average for every school in the country. Because there's only like 60, but there's like 50,000 applicants a year or something like that. So it's pretty insane. So applying to a BSMD program could be really nice and alleviate like the stress of applying to medical school later. And like it's great because you know that you're on your way to becoming a doctor. You don't have to stress about that. You just need to focus on your studies and like, you know, making it through to that point. The only thing that I'll say is that BSMD programs are also very competitive and they care a lot about like your experience with the medical field prior to applying. So hopefully you have volunteer work in healthcare and have taken like the appropriate coursework for things like that. So there's also other programs, not just for medical school, but if you're interested in business and an MBA, I highlighted these ones. If you apply, when you're applying to that school, they lump in your master's degree in business as well. And all the ones in green mean you have to, in order to be admitted to that program, you have to apply when you apply to the school as a senior in college. And then all the other ones are just options. Like if you're an undergraduate at that university, you can apply to their master's program and they'll likely consider you because you attend that university. So if business really interests you, this could be a great option because you know that these schools like will facilitate your, path in business, I guess. So then there's that. This is for law school, same thing. The highlighted ones mean you have to apply when you're senior. The non-highlighted ones means if you're an undergraduate student at that university, they'll give you like heavy consideration. And usually these are like accelerated degree programs, so you can complete both degrees in less time than it would to normally complete both degrees individually. This is the list for dental school. It's short. I haven't done much work on it yet. Pharmaceutical schools not existent yet, but these programs do exist. So like now that you know it exists, you can like look up and research it on your own. I don't even remember what DPT stands for, if I'm going to be completely honest, but there's that. And then, okay, so there we go. Those are accelerated degree programs that you can look into to help you pick certain schools if any of those fields interest you. And then merit-based scholarships are really nice because just because like you're basically eligible for them if you like meet a certain requirement. I should clarify, not requirement, because a lot of merit-based scholarships are also essay-based, so they care a lot about community engagement, diversity and inclusion, leadership, passion for a certain field, on top of grades and stuff. So they're basically looking for who's like the best of the best to fit this criteria. But for some schools, like you're totally eligible to apply to those and you can get full tuition, and it's not based on how much financial aid you need. So it's just based on like how great of a student you are. So when my sister was applying to college, she didn't really need to apply for financial aid, but she happened to accidentally apply for a scholarship that our state school offered, and then she was awarded that scholarship. So now she gets to go to undergrad completely for free, and she gets to save like, you know, all the money that she gets to save, she's now putting towards medical school, which is like a really nice stress reliever in that sense. So merit scholarships are great. I wish I applied to those, but I didn't really know that they existed or that I was applicable or that they were applicable to me. So that's nice. I don't know if you guys have heard of the RaiseMe program, but it's a new thing that schools are starting where you can see whether you're eligible. You can basically, I don't know how to explain it. You basically gain financial aid points, which is just money, by like doing certain things. So like in this little picture, if you got, you know, if you've taken AP biology and got a certain grade, and if you got an A, then this school might give you $500 for getting an A in AP Bio and stuff. And it's an app, so it logs like how much financial aid money that you're gaining for certain schools. And you only get the money if you attend that school. But this is like another good way to know like how much money could I get from the school on top of my financial aid, because this is just like from doing, you know, certain activities and stuff. So that's nice. And then what's the last link? Oh, AP credit search. That's a big deal. Like if you've taken like a lot of time in high school to focus on like AP coursework and things like that, you want to know if the school that you're applying to accepts your AP credit. So let's just find a random, I'll just do Duke, I guess. And so that is where I go. Oh, right. So we're looking at Greek University's credit, AP credit policy. And then this is nice because it shows, you know, if you got a 5 in AP Calc BC, then they'll let you skip 2 math courses. If you got a 5 in AP Chem, they'll let you go straight to organic chemistry and things like that. And it's nice to know that they'll still give you credits if you get 4s in certain exams and things like that. If I put in my state school as well, Ohio State. They basically show, this one shows more like, because Duke University doesn't do a credit system. It's kind of weird. Like they do, okay, so yeah, it's different than other schools. So Ohio State has like a credit system, so it shows if you got a 3 in AP Bio, it counts for 4 credits, and you get to skip this class. If you got a 5, then you get 8 credits, you get to skip these 2 classes and things like that. So that's really nice and helpful to know because, for example, like some schools don't have a limit to how much AP credit that you can apply. Ohio State is one of them. So if you have like, you know, 38 credits, you can be entering as a sophomore and then graduate in 2 years. And that's really nice to know because then it costs less for you. And, or what's also nice to know is like if you have 38 credits, you could still take all 4 years in college, but you can take all those 4 years to focus on things that are important to you, or you can, I know one kid from my high school, I think he got like 3 majors and 6 minors or something from Ohio State because he entered with so much AP credit that he like had time to do a lot of other coursework and just, you know, he like learning was something he was really passionate about. So this is really helpful. Also, this is helpful as a senior because you know which AP tests you might have to stress about at the end of the year, depending on like, you know, what school you end up going to at the end of the day. But I knew like Duke didn't take physics, my physics, because if you take physics 1, a lot of schools don't take physics 1 credit. You kind of have to take physics C if you want a college credit for physics. So I was like, well, I don't have to study for this AP test now because it doesn't matter what I get on it because I'm not going to get credit for it, like even if I got a 5. So that was nice to know. All right, so website surfing. All these colleges have tons and tons and tons of information that helps kind of differentiate them on their websites. So things that I would look for on the website are clubs and activities. That's kind of hard to find. It might take you a while of like digging to find their list of clubs, but that could be really cool to know because that's always helpful to mention in a why essay if you talk about clubs that are relevant to kind of your hobbies and clubs that you did in high school that you would want to continue doing in college. Like Emma said, ballet is something that she wants to keep doing. Mentioning like, hey, you have really nice ballet at University of Chicago could be like helpful and informative. I don't even remember if University of Chicago, they did have a why essay. We can talk more about what you wrote in that. For Duke, what did I write? I don't know. I don't think okay, whatever. I did talk about research and professors who were in neural engineering, and I'm like, that's exciting for me because I know that this field is like prevalent on campus and it's accessible and I can learn a lot about it in certain labs. So I would definitely look at the research and like the list of professors and what their research is at schools, both because it helps you figure out what you like, because if you read somebody's research and you're like, oh, no, that doesn't interest me at all, versus someone else's like, wow, you fell in love with that, you didn't know existed. That's really cool. Curriculum is helpful to know, again, if they teach the specific subfield or specialization that interests you. I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, I'm excited to take writing 101, because like every school offers like a writing 101 course, or a computer science 101. So it's not helpful saying like, oh, this is what's special to me about this school. But some schools, like I know Northwestern started this like partnership with the local hospital, where every biomedical engineering student, I think every engineering student gets to do like a project with this hospital. And like the hospital that they partnered with like isn't a normal hospital, it's like a special hospital for kids with incurable disabilities or diseases. So, and they challenge the students like, okay, these kids don't have something in healthcare that can help them. Can you make something that can help them? And not every school offers that class. So like talking about something like that would like help, inform you why Northwestern would be different, and like why, that class would be special for you to participate in. Duke kind of has a similar class, but where everyone gets like an engineering project, but it's not all in healthcare. And it is in local partnerships with local businesses. And that's really cool because you get to understand what engineering is before your senior year of college, because before you get to senior year, like there's a lot of intro courses. You have to take physics, chemistry, biology, math, whatever. But like taking those classes doesn't help you understand like what is the work of an engineer. So like Duke Engineering School does that. So yeah, study abroad opportunities. Some schools make it easier for you to study abroad. Some schools make it harder, and it can differ depending on your major. So I know, for example, engineering study abroad is really, really hard. Schools really prefer that you meet a lot of those requirements at the university that you're attending. But what's really nice is that Duke let engineers study abroad for summer in Costa Rica, where you could still study with like Duke professors, but like you got to do it in Costa Rica, which is really cool. But because of COVID, they had to cancel that for the past 2 years, so I didn't get to do it, which is kind of sad, but that's okay. But I know at Cornell, they specifically said biomedical engineers are not allowed to study abroad ever. If you want to do a different major. So like that was part of the reason why I got in there, but that's part of the reason why I didn't want to go there, because I was like, well, that doesn't really cater to my needs and wants of like wanting to study abroad. Programs, internships, kind of talked about that, degree programs and like options like dual degree, like can you double major in certain stuff. I know like Northwestern has a really interesting like chemistry plus music double major. So like some schools will have like different weird things like that, where they're like, hey, this is a literal option that you can pursue. And if that like interests you, then that would be a really good option for you. And then something that I just threw in, which I kind of discovered as I'm like looking into medical schools to apply to, is that like the diversity, equity, and inclusion page of a school can actually be really helpful and informative, because they'll post like any sort of financial aid awards or merit scholarships that are applicable to students who that applies to, like on that part of their webpage. They'll also talk about student groups there as well, so you don't have to like search as hard for clubs and activities if there's this particular group that you kind of want to find in community that you want to join on campus. And they'll also talk about like how much, like what the school does to cater to you in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I feel like that's really helpful. But yeah, usually there's a lot of resources for you to learn more about the school that way, through that part of the website. All right. Yes, and finding all of these like sounds like a lot of work, but at the end of the day, the work is going to pay off and be very beneficial for you, because you're going to be able to write about all the stuff that you learn about a school in the Y School essay, and that's going to make your essay that much more substantive and compelling, because it's like not because you know a lot about the school, they don't necessarily care about that, but they care that there are valid reasons for you to want to go to that school that like makes sense and sound compassionate for the school. So you can list all these things that you want, but if it doesn't make sense to them about like the reason why you want to attend, then it doesn't matter if you've wrote about all of these things in their essay. Okay, so other ways to discover opportunities that school has is through college YouTubers. Not necessarily, but I don't know. I think it's fun to watch them to see like how, kind of what college life is. But it's definitely through rose-colored glasses because it's YouTube film. They can edit like what they choose to show and what they don't. I think college Instagrams are really helpful, but I think it's kind of unrealistic to follow every college Instagram. So that's kind of what my business Instagram is about, where I follow like over hundreds of college Instagrams and I scroll through them and then I post on my story like different opportunities that they're posting about or like cool research studies that a college did. And like that way you can kind of find like either new scholarships or new opportunities or programs that schools are starting that might be interesting to you. Also, schools usually post like when they're hosting webinars on there, and I also repost things like that. But yeah, so I think college Instagrams are actually really helpful. And asking current students who attend university is very, 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 very helpful, especially for the why school essay, because those students will know specifically like what a school offers. So I think part of what's really cool about like me and Emma being here is that if you have questions about like either of our schools, like definitely ask us because we can tell you like a little bit more about like than what you might just find on the website or on an Instagram. And then yeah, again, like info sessions and webinars could be helpful to attend as well. Usually they all get to be a little bit redundant, but what's cool is that there's always a Q&A session. So if you have like specific questions that you want to ask to school, that's a good opportunity to do that. And speaking of Q&As, I am done and we can now do just your guys' questions, which is fun. I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah. All right.
So much, Talya, for that beautiful presentation. I think you included so many resources, and that was definitely very helpful for us. I know a few people asked in the chat if you would be comfortable with sharing your presentation.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yay. All right. Thank you so much for that. So I know that we also had a couple of questions sent in through the registration form. So I do want to begin with those questions. So I'm going to just paste all of them into the college app questions channel, and I think we can begin with that. If anybody else, wait, go ahead, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, sounds fun.
Yes, it is. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to send them in the college app questions. We're going to start with questions that were sent before registration, but feel free to send questions and we'll get to them after. So I think I don't know if either of you want to start for the first question. So the first question that we had is how to apply for financial aid and what to write when they ask for a study plan. I know that Talia, you did briefly mention about different scholarships and merit-based aid. I also do want to just plug in here that we will actually have a future workshop on financial aid, so definitely look out for that. But if either of you want to answer this question.
I was fortunate enough where I didn't have to apply to financial aid when I was applying to college. So I don't know if Emma, if that's applicable to you and you can talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So just tying it also with the theme about building a college list, it's also an important factor to look into because some schools are better with aid than others. I'm going to plug in my own school too because it might be like the most expensive one in the US, but it also has like the best the best financial aid program. So that's also a factor you want to consider as you're constructing your list. But again, it also depends on each institution's own process. So if you're like a domestic student, you would apply for the FAFSA, the Federal Application for Federal Student Aid. I forgot what the acronym stands for, but you would do that, and that goes to all of the schools. And then sometimes the other schools ask for other documentation, like the CSS profile, which is through the College Board, or UChicago has its own institutional application that's free that you don't have to pay like $30 for, like the CSS profile. So as you're researching these schools, besides looking at the programs they have and the scholarships they offer, you could also look at their application checklist and their financial aid application checklist, and there it should outline everything. I'm more used to obviously like domestic financial aid applications because I'm not an international student, but I'm sure they also have those steps that international students would have to go to in order to apply to aid if they offer aid. I know that sometimes gets tricky because sometimes international applicants have to apply like need aware, which really sucks for you guys. But again, it just depends on each institution's own process. A general way to go through it is having like that general FAFSA application ready and sending that to all of your schools once you finalize your college list, and then going back and identifying which each school's own other process outside of their general application is like. I hope that helps.
Yes, I think that was definitely helpful. Thank you so much for that response, Emma. I also just want to plug in here, just mention here, not plug in, mention here that, so in terms of international applications, although I personally am also, like Emma said, I was a domestic applicant, so I don't know the international process too in depth. It is just a fact that it is harder to find scholarships and to receive aid if you're an international applicant compared to domestic applicants. That doesn't mean you want to lose all hope, though. I know that some institutions, like Talya mentioned, can give generous scholarships if you meet a specific SAT range, or if you get a specific GPA range, or merit scholarships along those lines. So you definitely want to look into the websites of all the schools you're applying to see the different type of scholarships that they offer. I know that there are a few schools that are need blind for international applicants, but they do tend to be very competitive. But you shouldn't rule them out of your list just because they are competitive. So I just wanted to mention that here. I also just wanted to say that I do have a resource that I just wanted to share with you guys, and I know Emma also had a resource that she wanted to share about building a college list. So I'm just going to include very quickly a link to a Reddit post that I think is very helpful and that breaks down a variety of different factors to be considered, many of which Emma and Talia mentioned in their presentations today. So I'm including that link in the channel as well. And then Emma, I know you had a resource that you wanted to share as well.
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can just figure out how to share my screen really quick.
Yes, take your time.
I might have to alter my system preferences because I don't think I've ever like shared my screen on Discord before. But as I do that, I just wanted to like preface what I'm going to share. But I know Talia also gave a bunch of really important criteria, I guess you could call it, about like how to select schools based on like what programs they offer and what to look for on their websites. And I just wanted to add on to that because schools also have their class profiles or their common data sets, which basically just demonstrate like their statistics for the students that they admit. So like average SAT scores, average GPAs, their national and international sort of spread across the country and the world, and where people are coming from to the school. And you could use that information to sort of gauge how each school ranks on your tier. So it's like kind of like a tier list, if you're familiar with those. So you have the reaches, which are the schools that you might fall a bit short of on the like their statistics, or if you fall within but they have a really small acceptance rate. So that would be something that you're reaching towards, that you're working really hard to get into. You also have your match schools, so you would fall within their averages or maybe even slightly above. And then for your safeties, you're right within the averages. You're like bound to be accepted, or you're even slightly above the averages of their class profiles and their history of accepting students. So to research that information and sort of gauge which schools you should put where on that sort of tier, and like which schools you should strive more towards, which schools are matches for you. You could search for the university class of 2024 profile, and when they release the 2025 profiles, you could also search for those. And they give you all those like statistical breakdowns so you could reference, as well as a common data set, which is like this really nitty-gritty, really long document that each school has to put together with all of this information. And it might be a bit difficult to go through it, but you could just like Command F or Control F and search for specific criteria. I know I was like really, in my process, I was really I guess hypercritical on my like SAT score, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get anywhere with my scores or whatever. So I would always search for like SAT or standardized test averages in the common data sets. So if you are worried about a specific aspect when applying to schools, you could most definitely like see which where you lie, I guess, in the averages of those schools, and it kind of helps you gauge how to build your list and where to put each school where on your list of priorities and your tiers. So I think to share that, I might have to quit Discord. So I think I will have to leave, and then I'll be right back, and then I'll be showing you. I'll have like a visual aid to what I'm talking about.
Thank you so much. Also, if you would like for me to share, I can also help out with sharing. But if you also want to leave and come back, that's totally up to you. So feel free
Okay,
to.
yeah. I'm gonna quit really quick because I also have like another like document besides the common data sets that I want to share. So I want to make sure I have like that ability checked off in my system preferences. But I'll be back really quick.
Thank you so much. Awesome. So while Emma is doing that, I think I might just move on to the next question. So I do see one question about how to convince my parents to let me study abroad, applying for the Global Korean scholarships, and do we need extracurriculars related to our future professions? So I know these are a lot of questions in one. I will say that, again, the speakers that we have today, including me, are international applicants. So I don't know if they'll be able to answered the second question, but Talia, do you have any insights on the other questions that was in that question?
Yeah, I can do the extracurricular question. So basically, what they care about your extracurriculars are mostly like, are you engaged in like things outside of school, and are you engaged in things that you care about? So it's, for example, some people will try to put every single extracurricular they ever did when they applied, but it's a lot more about quality instead of quantity. So you don't want to include an activity that you only did for a year and then you quit afterwards. That wouldn't be something good to put on there. But specifically for your question, like, should they be career focused? They basically, what your extracurriculars are allowed to do is, like, you want a good range of extracurriculars, ones that are just related to your passions and hobbies, and then maybe a couple that are related to your career interests. But related to your career interests is very broadly defined. So for example, if you're interested in engineering, like, universities don't actually expect you to have any engineering exposure like as a high school student, because it's not very common for every high school to have like a robotics club or accessible tech courses. But if you've taken math, upper level math, or if you're in a math club, or if you're in any sort of science club, they'll consider like that tangential to engineering. Because like I kind of said earlier, engineering majors are required to learn physics, math, biology, chemistry, like every single science field. So having any sort of science related extracurricular would kind of check off like that exposure. Also having like any hobby, like building Legos or having exposure to computer science is also very tangential to like engineering related things. So for something that's not engineering, like business, I guess if you were like the treasurer in your club doesn't have to be business related, but if you happen to be like a treasurer of a club, like maybe if you're specifically interested in finance, I would say like that's kind of cool. So basically, you just want to be able to explain to them why you have your career interests, and ideally you'll have like one or two extracurricular activities that are like related to that reason why, or like related to some sort of exposure for that major. But no, they don't all have to be related to your career, and they don't need to be exactly in that exact field. And in most cases, they don't expect you to have like exact exposure in certain fields.
Thank you so much for that, Talia. And just adding on to what Talia said, college is really the time to explore your field better, explore the different major options, internship options, all of that. So I think it's kind of like extreme to feel like you're expected to have already pursued X many internships in your major if college is the time where you decide on your major. So really, I think the main thing here is commitment and dedication, as Talia beautifully mentioned. So do whatever you'd like, but make sure that's something that you're passionate about. And that passion and commitment will also be able to be echoed in your essay and your supplemental essays in the college application process as well. So I know
Yeah.
that we have 5 more minutes. I noticed that Emma is back, so I know that she wants to share her screen and the resources. I do also just want to quickly ask one more question from the registration, which is like how many schools would be in a decent sized college list?
I think, yeah, I could totally speak on that as I share my screen. So, I had like an additional resource which really helps to organize that. So it really depends on how many schools you're willing to commit to. Some people go like really crazy and apply to like 30. I've seen people apply to like 50 schools, which in my opinion, is a bit much. And I think Talya also mentioned this, that as like, I guess the quantity of applications that you're producing goes up, maybe the quality goes down. So if you want to make sure that you have a like really strong set of college applications equally across the board to all of your schools, maybe like around 10 or so. It just really depends on how many you're willing to apply to and also how many individual applications you're producing. So I know for me, I went a little bit crazy and I did 20 because I was like the maximum on the common application, and I was like, I want to go max. And many times I felt very overwhelmed. So that's a feeling you definitely want to reduce during this process. So maybe less than 20 would be right for you. But if you're producing like all of your applications on the Common App or like on a general application like that or the Coalition app, it might be a bit easier to do more applications rather than like if you're doing, you know, individual institutional applications. Like I know Georgetown University, for example, doesn't have connections to the Common App or the Coalition app, so you have to do their own application. And I, for that one reason, did not do their application. So if you're doing a lot of individual ones like that, maybe a smaller list is right for you. It also just depends on which ones you want to apply to. I don't want to say like a strict number because, you know, those parameters aren't ever specific. I think a good mentality to have during this process is there's not really like a right or wrong answer to everything. It's just really, really individualized. And although that might seem like a really good thing at many points throughout the process, like you could really, you know, put the pieces together in your own way and construct your own journey throughout the college application process. And many, many times it also seems very overwhelming and like you have no sense of what to do. So that's something that while you're actually constructing the list and picking out the specific schools that you would really want to specify as well, like, is this too much for me? Is this not going to be enough? It also kind of also depends on like which application cycles you're doing. So if you're trying to do like early applications, like early decision or early action or restrictive early action, so like early decision, it would be like if you get in, you go to that school. Early action, you just get in early, but you have the option to apply to other schools. And then restrictive early action is you can only apply to that school early, but you can also say no if you don't want to go later on. So that also depends on which application cycle you're doing. If you're doing like the ED route, the early decision route, I know a lot of my peers who went that way didn't apply to a lot of other schools because they kind of had their decisions beforehand. But I didn't, and other people that didn't do like ED institutional applications and were really undecided on where they wanted to go, kind of took that as a sign to increase the amount of applications. So if you're set on a school, you might want to put like all of your efforts, or not all of them, but you know, a majority of your efforts to getting in and like maybe even applying ED. But if you're indecisive, maybe a more ample, a larger list of colleges is good for you. So whether you're doing a lot or a little college list, a good resource I want to share besides the common data sets and the class of 2025 profiles is this. I don't know if you can see it. I think you can. This is just basically like my spreadsheet that I use to organize all of my applications, and I used it. I created it using this website / application called Airtable. You can just search it on airtable.com. It's free. It's basically like a really fancy sort of spreadsheet like Google Sheets or like Excel, but you can put like cool colors on it, which is why I really liked it. So basically what I did here is I like put all of my schools, I manually put them in, and I put like a check mark for when I updated or when I submitted my application, as you can see here. And I just organized, I put like all of the little details about the application. So the due date, you can order it chronologically so it's easier to see. The tier, which is what I talked about, like if it's a match school, safety, or reach. I had a lot of reaches, which was maybe not the best idea, but that's besides the point. And also the platform. This is when I was still considering applying to schools like Georgetown that don't have Common App applications. But in the end, as you can see, I ended up just doing everything on the Common App because that was a bit of my lazy characteristic. And then I also filled it in with any of like the same materials that they required. So for like Florida schools, you see like this weird thing, this weird acronym that's like their own version of like a report card that you have to fill in. It's like really unnecessary to do, but that's for like the state schools that I applied to. And as you can see, a lot of them overlap. So once you have like letters of recommendations, for example, or an art supplement or a resume, you can send that out to multiple schools and sort of strategize. If you have like your Harvard application ready, you can also maybe send that out to Columbia or other schools that have like the same sorts of requirements, and then test scores. And so I did this a bit tediously. Like I spent a lot of time on this, maybe more time that I should have contributed to my actual applications, but just seeing it out like this really helped me and really helped me organize and sort of move around which schools I wanted to apply to, which ones I would sort of put on a back burner and not put so many efforts towards. And the other fun part is that this due date like column connects to this calendar view. So you can see like on a calendar when your applications are due, and you can sort of plan out when you're going to complete them like that. So Airtable.com, really recommended. It's a really underrated resource in my opinion. So in connection to like the question about how many colleges, like the number of colleges is right for your list, for your college app list, there's no right or wrong answer, but if you're leaning towards applying to a lot of them, then maybe creating a spreadsheet like this on Airtable and organizing it like that would be really, really helpful, and won't like get you all muddled during your process. Again, hope that helps.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think being able to create a spreadsheet and have everything organized in a spreadsheet is definitely very helpful to keep yourself organized. And I think something I personally struggled with during the application process was not keeping track of deadlines and not managing my time efficiently. So I think that if you guys take the step of organizing all of the deadlines and requirements and all of that, especially before senior year classes start getting difficult, I think